Hello and welcome to the Wine Turtle YouTube channel. My name's Jamie and I'll be your host as we taste and review popular wines from around the world and explore the grapes and the winemaking techniques that make them special. So sitting next to me today is a rather peculiar wine. Over the last few years there's been a trend of whiskey barrel aging things. So we've had whiskey barrel aged hot sauces, honeys, syrups, coffees, and wine hasn't escaped this either. So this wine is bourbon barrel aged. It is the Robert Mondavi Private Selection Bourbon Barrel Aged Cabernet Sauvignon from 2021. It costs about $13 and it's widely available in supermarkets and liquor stores across the country. So this wine is made with Cabernet Sauvignon grapes from California's central coastal region. Parts of the wine are aged in new oak barrels and parts are aged in used bourbon barrels from Kentucky. Apparently they come from a renowned distillery, but they don't make mention of which distillery that is. So from the new barrels we can expect oaky notes, you know what to expect, but from the bourbon barrels, characteristics of the whiskey. So that's really interesting. Whiskey's a really powerful drink and I'm interested to see how they've approached balancing this and which notes have been imparted onto the wine. I love whiskey and I love wine, but I've never once dreamt of combining the two into a super drink like this. So yeah, I'm really interested to see what they've done here, and yeah, how the two elements mix together and if it works. So let's get tasting and find out. Okay, really interested about this one. Let's start taking a look. So it's a dark, inky ruby. A little bit of opacity at the edges, maybe not quite as bold as I thought it might be. Medium to full-bodied, but certainly not as bold as a Cabernet Sauvignon can get. All right, let's get my nose in there. So there's a definite bourbon characteristic there. There's a bit of smoke, which I assume comes from the bourbon. It's a note you get in some whiskies. It's like a campfire smoke. Not unpleasant, it's quite a nice note. And it's there with a bit more typical Cabernet Sauvignon notes. There's blackberry, blackcurrant, and then there's a little bit of a sweeter caramel type note there, possibly from the whiskey as well. But it's it's a really interesting nose, with a good blend of the two elements that have gone together to make this wine. So let's have a taste. Right, so yeah, so there's a big bourbon influence there, and just when it starts to take over the fruity nature of the wine, those big tannins are firm and grippy, and they remind you that you're drinking Cabernet Sauvignon. Just when you might start to doubt it. But a lot of the notes from the nose come through there. There's a little bit of smoke there, which I actually really enjoy in this wine, with some blackcurrant and blackberry, which are a little bit jammy in flavour. But this is it's a really dry wine actually. These cheaper wines tend to be a little bit sweeter than usual, but this is almost savoury. Yeah, it's really pleasing actually. A very dry finish with those grippy tannins almost drying your mouth out. It also feels a little bit hot, going down the throat there, a little bit like a whiskey, a bourbon whiskey does. It's 14.5%, which is by no means low, but it feels a little bit more than that. Yeah, maybe the character of the whiskey coming through. I didn't mention earlier, but I opened this wine last night. So I've had it's been open for about 24 hours. I tried it for the first time last night. I decanted it for over an hour, for a long time. And the bourbon character was just too much. I found it almost unpleasant. It ended on this lingering bourbon taste, which I didn't enjoy it at all. It was overpowering. The balance just wasn't there. And I woke up today thinking, this wine's pretty poor. I'm gonna have to give this a bad score. But 24 hours later, I'm finding myself enjoying it much more than I did yesterday. The bourbon nature has subsided. It's much more like Cabernet Sauvignon now, with a hint of bourbon, rather than a much more bourbon heavy drink. It's really interesting, and quite enjoyable wine. Quite a nice surprise actually. One that's changed an awful lot in just 24 hours. So how am I going to score this wine? I've had two very different experiences with it. It started off as something I really didn't enjoy drinking. The finish was unpleasant, and there was just too much bourbon and oak influence in there. Whereas today, 24 hours after opening, it's become a wine that I quite enjoyed drinking. It's really interesting, unlike any cab I've had before. So I think I have to go with how I've enjoyed it today, and I'm going to score it 7 out of 10. It's $13, and at that price point, you don't really get wines that are this interesting. It's evolved over time. I'm finding new notes in it 24 hours later. It's been a really fun wine to drink, although it did start off negatively. So I recommend you try this wine. It's a really fun one, but you have to give it time. My experience with it has been a strange one, but it's ending nicely. So going by this wine I have in front of me right now, yeah, give it a shot. It's a really fun one, especially if you like bourbon. I think you're really going to love it. So that's another review wrapped up, and I hope you'll join me next time. Goodbye.